Some love stories don't begin with a spark. Some begin in silence, under gray skies, in the stillness of rain. And sometimes the most unforgettable moments are the ones we never meant to keep. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon. The sky had turned gray, the scent of wet pavement already rising from the ground, and people rushed under store awnings with newspapers and umbrellas shielding them from the drizzle. But then, in the middle of that quiet chaos, she saw him, standing alone, soaked to the bone, smiling like he belonged in that rain. She didn't know why she stopped. Maybe it was the way he looked up at the sky like he was thanking it. Or maybe it was that feeling like something important had just shifted. And as she held her umbrella out toward him, not even knowing his name, the story began. The rain poured harder, and they found shelter in the tiny cafe tucked between a flower shop and a bookstore. It smelled like cinnamon and coffee grounds, and time seemed to slow as they sat by the fogged-up window. He introduced himself as Liam. She gave her name, Hana. Simple names, yet suddenly filled with weight. They spoke with the hesitation of two strangers, learning each other's silence. Her hands wrapped around the warm mug as if afraid the moment would slip away. He laughed softly when she made a joke about the rain choosing who to drench. And in that soft corner of the world, surrounded by strangers and raindrops, two souls unknowingly began to unravel their loneliness together. They met again, not by coincidence, not anymore. The cafe became their shared secret, rainy afternoons, the corner table, and two coffee cups that stayed longer than they should have. Liam always arrived first, ordering her favorite drink without asking. Hana always brought her notebook, pretending to write, but really just watching how he sipped his drink like time wasn't real. He talked about his mother's garden back home, how it smelled like lavender in July. She shared the story of her father, who used to paint in silence, colors speaking louder than words. There were no grand confessions, no declarations of love, just tiny memories exchanged like fragile notes between two musicians improvising the same song. Every laugh, every silence became a marker of time. The outside world continued, cars moved, seasons shifted, but inside that cafe, they lived in a moment, stretched thin, like sugar melting in warm tea. That day, the rain didn't just fall. It danced, on rooftops, on window panes, on the rhythm of their words. Hana had brought an umbrella, but she never opened it. She and Liam walked side by side under the misty gray sky, coats slightly damp, their shoulders brushing occasionally, as if the world was trying to nudge them closer. They talked about nothing: favorite films, terrible childhood haircuts, books they lied about reading. But every laugh was louder than the last. Hana hadn't realized how much her soul missed laughing until it echoed back to her through Liam's smile. When they stopped under a willow tree outside the park, droplets slid from the leaves like whispers. He asked nothing, she offered nothing, and yet everything felt said. She had always hated the rain, but that day, for the first time, she wished it would never stop. The sky was clear, not a single cloud above, and for the first time since they met, the sun laid its warmth over the city like a quiet reminder that not all beauty came in drops. Yet Hana felt strangely out of place. She walked the same streets, but with a growing ache in her chest, like something was missing from the picture. They had agreed, without words, to meet only on rainy days. Maybe it was superstition, maybe it was safety. The rain made them feel hidden, suspended in their own world. But today, under the brightness of reality, they were exposed, visible, vulnerable. Hana sat alone in the cafe, her fingers curled around a lukewarm mug, watching the door in intervals too frequent to ignore. Liam didn't come. The laughter was gone, replaced by a silence too loud. The waiter asked if she wanted to order for two again. She smiled and said, quietly, "Just me today." And in that moment she realized the rain wasn't what brought them together. It was what kept them from falling apart. Liam had always been better with silence than with words. He could sit beside someone for hours and make them feel understood without speaking. But when it came to saying what mattered most, his voice failed him. So he wrote. Not stories, not poetry, just letters. Letters never meant to be sent. That morning before the clouds returned, he wrote her one. It started simply. If you're reading this, it means I didn't say it out loud. He wrote about the way she tilted her head when she listened, how she smelled like rain and vanilla, and how her silence was the loudest peace he'd ever known. He confessed that sometimes he wanted to call her on sunny days, but was afraid it would ruin everything they'd built under gray skies. Then he folded the paper and slid it into a drawer. He told himself, maybe someday. But he knew better. Liam didn't need her to read it. He just needed to know he'd written it, that the feeling had lived outside of him, if only for a moment. The rain came back, heavier than before, and so did she. But something was different. Hana's laughter was quieter, her footsteps lighter. She wore thicker scarves, and her lips lost color as days passed. Liam noticed, but said nothing. He waited for her to speak, and she waited for him to ask. She coughed sometimes, not the dry kind. It sounded deep, like it came from a place no one could reach. One afternoon, as she sat curled near the cafe window, her head resting on her palm, Liam watched her blink, slower than usual. He reached out, placing his hand gently over hers. And for a second, she looked at him. Not smiling, not pretending, just honest. Tiredly. "I'm tired," she said. He didn't ask of what. He knew, and in that moment, the silence between them grew heavy. It wasn't comfortable anymore. It carried weight of what wasn't said, of what was slipping away. But he held her hand anyway, not to keep her, but to let her know she didn't have to walk away alone. The rain returned the next day, gentler this time, more like a lullaby than a storm. Liam walked into the cafe without expectation. He told himself not to look, but his eyes went straight to the corner table. She wasn't there, but her umbrella was, folded neatly, leaning against the chair she always chose. It was the same umbrella she never opened, even on the worst days. The same one she once twirled like a dance partner when they walked home. Liam froze. The barista said she'd come in earlier, left the umbrella, and left again. He sat down at their table, unable to touch it. That single object held too much. It felt heavier than anything he had ever lifted. 1,000 conversations, glances, hesitations, and unfinished goodbyes rested within its fabric. He didn't cry. He didn't move. He just sat there as the rain tapped gently on the windows, whispering stories only they understood.
Days passed, and she didn't return. Not to the cafe, not to the sidewalk near the flower stall, not to the world they had crafted between raindrops and silences. Her number stopped ringing. Messages went unanswered. It wasn't dramatic, it was like fog quietly swallowing a street. Liam walked aimlessly, past bookstores she loved, past the corner where she once tripped and laughed like it didn't hurt, past the spot where they had once stopped to share a pastry in the rain. Everything held pieces of her, but none of them could bring her back. Then it happened. At the base of the park's willow tree, something fluttered. Soaked paper, half torn by the wind. He picked it up carefully, ink blurred by water, but her handwriting still visible. Sadly, "I'm sorry I can't stay." Thoughtful. "But you made the rain beautiful again." Liam stood there, unmoving, as rain slid down his cheeks and collar. No one else cried, not even the sky. But the rain knew. The rain remembered her. It didn't rain every day, but when it did, Liam returned to the cafe, always sitting by the window, 2 cups in front of him. One stayed untouched. He no longer waited. He remembered. Sometimes he'd speak to the seat across from him in a voice barely above a whisper, sharing things only she would understand. The world around him continued spinning, but in that little corner of the cafe, time stayed wet and still. People noticed the quiet man with soft eyes and the empty chair. Some thought he was waiting. Others said he was lost. But Liam had never been clearer. He wasn't chasing the past, he was honoring it. On days when the rain was light enough, he'd walk to the willow tree, not in grief, but in gratitude. He'd sit beneath it, close his eyes, and let the drizzle touch his face. Because somewhere between the drops, she still existed. And whenever it rained, she came back. Not to stay, but just enough to be remembered. She didn't stay, but when it rains, she returns. In the silence between each drop, in the corners of memory we never dust away. Love doesn't always need forever. Sometimes a moment is enough. Thank you for watching and feeling this story with us. If this story touched your heart even just a little, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with someone you care about, and leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe and stay with us for the next journey. Because sometimes a story finds you.
just when you need it most.